Job chapter 38, verses 4 and 5. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know, or who stretched the line upon it? People usually think of the Bible as a book of morals, a religious book that teaches ethics and morals, and their minds are full of such preconceived ideas. But these words we have just read have nothing to do with morals. It says here, when I laid the foundations of the earth, it is saying that the foundations of the earth were laid to be rock solid. At first, when the earth was a burning ball of gas, the heaviest particles sank to the center and settled there. So the foundation at the center of the earth was laid and formed out of materials which are very solid and will not even melt in fire. If the foundation of the earth had not been formed in this way, it couldn't have remained as it is. So look at what it says here in this passage. In the Bible, God asks, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?" The foundations of this earth. That's what it says, isn't it? The Bible does of course contain references to morals and ethics, as you might expect. But if you think that is all there is to the Bible, if you think it is merely a religious book of morals, you need to think again. In that case, what is the Bible? It contains some science, some history, and some literature. It also contains prophecies and matters concerning the entire history of mankind. It talks about the creation of this world. It talks about how history has unfolded until now, and what will happen in the future. It includes all these things. All these lessons from God are to be found within its pages. Those of you sitting here listening to this right now have probably lived your lives without ever giving much thought to the question of how the foundation of the world was laid. But the Bible spoke 3,000 years ago about the foundation of the world. And it also says, look at verse 5 again, it says, "Who determined its measurements?" Measurements. When we describe someone who is well educated, we say that he is intelligent. But we sometimes talk about the measure of a person in terms of how big a heart a person has or how broad-minded he is. But the measurements referred to here are things like the width or length or weight or depth of something. This is what it means here by measurements. Here it says, "Who determined its measurements?" What does this mean? Suppose, for example, this is the sun. This is the sun. And this is the earth. And this is the moon here. When it comes to the measurements here, if you draw a straight line from the sun to the earth, that distance is about 150 million kilometers. The earth is orbiting the sun at a distance of about 150 million kilometers. But what would have happened if someone had not created this according to some plan, and it had just come about by chance? Suppose it had just happened by chance, and the earth ended up orbiting around the sun at a far greater distance. Then man would not be able to live on this earth. The earth would become a complete ball of ice. So no one would be able to live there. Then, if the earth were to follow an orbital path closer to the sun, like the planet Mercury, which is the closest to the sun, the earth would become a ball of fire, and again no one would be able to live there. In the case of the planet Mercury, it rotates very slowly on its axis, so any one side of the planet faces the sun for a much longer period at a time. A warm breeze will move towards a cold place. It will move toward a cold place. In the wintertime, the reason that frost forms on a window is that the moisture inside the room moves towards the cold outside and is stopped by the glass. It goes towards the cold outside and stops at the glass. So it is believed that the planet Mercury is a place where the temperature is constantly surging. Now, if you look here, the Earth must not move any further away from the Sun or any closer to it. There may be some slight variations in this distance, but roughly speaking, the Earth orbits the Sun at a distance of about 150 million kilometers. Why is this? This is one of the requirements for life to be able to exist here. It would not be possible for life to exist if the Earth were not in this precise position, if life is to exist. The Earth in its present position fulfills around 200,000 requirements that are necessary for life to exist. God made his plans in accordance with the laws that he established. And it is because God created these things, following these laws, that these numbers were set in this way. The mathematician by the name of Pythagoras said, "Number is the law of the universe. Number is the law of the universe." He spoke of the laws of the universe. The size of the Earth, the size of the Sun, all these facts are extremely important. I once read a booklet that said that the Earth weighs 6 septillion kilograms. I don't know how they actually weighed it to come to that figure. They would have had some way of calculating it, wouldn't they? If the Earth were to weigh not 6 septillion kilograms, but 100 trillion kilograms, no one would be able to live here. There's no way we could live on the Earth if its weight were any different, because of things like gravity. The physical bodies that we now have, the body that each of us has, is in complete harmony with these things like the size of the Earth, gravity, and the weight of the Earth. If this setup were to fail, even in the slightest, we wouldn't be able to live on Earth in the bodies that we now have. So the question is, who designed and created all these things in such great detail? Now take a look here. The Earth takes the Moon along with it as it orbits the Sun. But the Moon is right here, isn't it? The Moon is very close to the Earth. I think it was in July 1969 that man first traveled to the Moon and back. This distance is about 380,000 kilometers. 380,000 kilometers. But why is the Moon orbiting the Earth at an average distance of 380,000 kilometers? This is very important. Because of the role of the Moon. Suppose this is the ocean. This is the ocean. But there are always low and high tides, aren't there? The waters of the ocean are drawn up by gravitational pull. They can rise about 10 meters and then they fall again. So by the coast, the waters withdraw at low tide and they come flowing back at high tide. I suspect that you probably don't really know what role this all plays, since you aren't directly aware of it. This whole system regulates the seasons and climate on this Earth. If it weren't for this, it would be difficult for people to live on this Earth. So the Moon is really very precious and is vital for our very existence. That doesn't mean I'm saying you should go out and worship the Moon or say thank you to the Moon. So look at what it says here. Who determined these measurements, the distances, the sizes, and other such details? God is speaking here. Let's read it again. Chapter 38, verse 1. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, "Who is this who darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Now prepare yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me." The Old Testament uses the expression "the Lord," and some translations use Jehovah. This means God, so God was speaking here. Who laid the foundations of the earth? Who determined its measurements? Its distance, weight, and width? Who determined these things? It was God who determined these things. And not only that, there's something very interesting here. Suppose this is the sun.
지구가
The Earth is orbiting the Sun, but if you look at how it does this, when it's on this side, it looks like this, and when it's on this side, it looks like this, as it's moving around like this. Let's say this is the equator. The equator. This is the equator. If we look at the Earth like this, if you can look at the Earth from a distance like this, you would see that it's tilted like this. It's tilted at an angle of about 23.5 degrees. This is really quite extraordinary. If it were not tilted like this, no one would be able to live on this Earth. Why is that? When the Earth is over here, it is summer in the southern hemisphere. Then it continues its orbit, and when it comes to this side around here, it is summer in the northern hemisphere. So it's because the Earth is tilted at an angle of about 23.5 degrees that we experience the 4 seasons of the spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Now imagine this is the Earth. If the equator were situated like this, if it were like this, and it stayed like this as it proceeded from here to here, then what would happen? If the equator were continually exposed to the direct rays from the sun, it would heat up, and steam would rise up from the surface. As this steam rose up, it would move in both directions, to the north and the south, the colder parts. Then the ice here would just continue to grow. These large areas of ice would continue to grow, and the waters in the oceans would dry up, or the weight would cause the earth to buckle. It would have that kind of effect. So when the southern hemisphere faces the sun, there is ice in the north, while the ice in the south melts. And when the earth moves over to this side, the ice in the north melts. And so all the conditions for people to be able to live on the earth are balanced out in this way. Did this all come about by itself? Did this happen by chance? This didn't just come about by chance. There is no way that this could have happened by chance. Why are your hands and feet different? Your hands were made to touch and feel objects, and your feet were made to walk and move about on the ground. Did this come about by chance? Even if you just think generally about the human body and the natural world, we can't deny that all these things are God's creation. He established the laws and created all things according to those laws. If, in the course of your life until now, you have always thought that God doesn't exist, if you have denied Him in your heart, you need to be apologetic towards God. God is the great creator who created everything in the heavens and on the earth, and He is the source of all truth. But have you lived your life disregarding God, who is the source of all truth? That's no ordinary sin.